Hey everybody, this is Spencer from Pixel and Bracket, and in this tutorial I'm going to show you how to create a flat minimal interface design in Adobe Illustrator.
Yeah. Now let me introduce to y'all, it's the one son of a musician refused to fall.
Okay guys, this is the flat minimal design that we're going to be creating. It's pretty simple and not made up of very many shapes, so it shouldn't be too hard to create, right? And before we get started, I want to mention a collaboration I'm doing with FlowTuts. On his channel, he does these really high energy tutorials in After Effects, as well as some in Illustrator and other programs. And what we're doing on this tutorial in particular is I'm building these assets so that you guys learn how to create these sort of flat designs in Illustrator. He's also going to have a tutorial on how to animate something like this, like an interface dial design in After Effects. So you can find the link to that in the description. Maybe a card just popped up to his channel or to that video. But he's got an awesome channel. Go give him some love, subscribe to his channel. In the meantime, let's learn how to make something cool in Illustrator. So this is that dial that we're going to be making, and I'm going to go ahead and delete the background and then move this dial over to the side. And let's break it apart. Let's show you what we're going to be making, right? So in the very back, we've got this sort of, I don't know, like the heating element of the thermostat. So you've got blue meaning cold and red meaning hot, and that's sort of like as you would move the dial around, that's kind of where you're setting it. And then this is the actual dial here. It's made up of only two circles, as a matter of fact. You can see we got one there and then one right there. And then we have just the little circle for the actual dial part, and then the number for the temperature. So that's it. We're going to try to work on this from the bottom up. So we're going to start with the gradient here and then move into the dial shape and then the sort of interface that goes on top of it. Let's begin. Oh, actually, we're going to start with the background. So let's start with the background. Let's start with the background. All right, I'm going to zoom in here a little bit for you guys to kind of make things kind of closer. All right, background's pretty easy, but we're going to start by teaching you how to, I'm going to start by teaching you how to use the gradient tool. So let's get a rectangle shape here with the tool. Got it? Also shortcut key M to get the rectangle tool. Just click on your canvas, and then I'm going to set it up to be 1920 by 1080. That is my canvas size, by the way, if you're setting up a new document. And I'm going to hit OK. Ooh, we already got a gradient because we had it selected. Let's go ahead and click on that. We definitely don't want that gradient. I'm going to just change that to white for now. And then I'm going to take it, and we're not going to do a stroke on that. So no stroke on that. But we will want to center that up. So if I can have that selected, I'm going to go up to align to artboard and then horizontal and vertical align. So we're going to center align that. Now I don't want this to just be any old white background. I'm going to have a gradient background. So I'm going to click on that shape and then go over here to the gradient panel. What you guys will most likely have here, let's see if we have it. Yeah, you'll most likely just have a white to black. And if you click on that, it'll set up your gradient as the default linear white to black gradient. So we have a couple of options here. The one I'm going to be concerned with first is type. I'm going to change that type to radial, and then this is really harsh, so I'm going to change this to maybe like a 20% black. So let's go down here and select one of these lower end blacks, maybe this 20% black right here. So now that radial starts in the center and it moves outward. So it's very white in the center, and then as you go to the right of this gradient slider, it moves to the darker gray, 20% black as you get closer to the edges. I don't want that. I actually want it to move in from like the upper left-hand corner as if we have a light source up there, and then it'll get darker as it goes down to the lower right. So how do I adjust this gradient? It's pretty simple actually. Just grab the gradient tool over here, shortcut key G, and then imagine everything reading left to right. So you have this gradient set up here, goes from left, the whitest, to right, the darkest, which is going to be the 20% black, and any other colors you have set up in between there, but for us just a light color to kind of a darker color. And if I have my shape selected and I click and drag from that corner, you'll see that we are already sort of setting the gradient, and it's setting it from where I clicked, the left side of the gradient, to where I let go, the right side of the gradient. left being whiter, right being grayer. When I let go, it's lighter up in the upper left now and darker in the lower right. We can adjust some of those settings here. We can adjust them in this panel over here. We can redo that gradient. We can make, you know, the color darker, such things like that, but we're gonna leave it be for now. That's exactly what we want. I'm gonna go back to my selection tool, and then with this selected, I'm gonna hit Command 2 to lock that in place. So I don't really wanna move that background any more than I have to. All right, that's the gradient tool, okay? I know we just set up a background, that's it, but I wanted you guys to know how to use the gradient tool so when we move forward, I don't have to explain it quite as much. So next we're gonna just create a circle. This is gonna be the biggest circle, which is gonna kind of incorporate that hot to cold or cold to hot gradient. So I'm gonna click down here on my shape tools and then just hold and select the circle tool, also shortcut key L. And then I'm gonna find the center here. If you're not seeing any of these sort of pink lines that are, you know, helping snap and line you up together, just go up to the View tab, Smart Guides, Command U, make sure they're checked. Actually pretty helpful, Smart Guides are. So we're gonna use them a lot to sort of snap things in place, but it's telling me that the center is right here, and I'm gonna create a circle from the center out. I'm gonna do that by clicking and dragging to start creating my circle. Then I'm gonna hold Shift to sort of lock it into that circle shape, and then I'm gonna hold Option to lock it in proportionally from the center. So now I'm just kind of scaling in and out, and I'm just gonna create the largest shape here, just kind of arbitrarily about this size. And we'll let it go. And it's still got that gradient that we had before, so we're actually going to adjust that a little bit. Make sure we have our shape clicked with the selection tool, and then go back over here to the gradient panel. And I have 2 colors already set up. So this gradient is set up. If it's not, just click on this here and it'll set up the gradient for you. Right now it's set to radial. I think I'm going to go ahead and do linear on this. And then I'm not really concerned about where it is right now. I'm just gonna adjust some of the colors. So I'm gonna double click on that color swatch, and it's gonna pull up my swatches panel. And I already have my blue and red set up, so I'm gonna grab this blue. You can see the RGB code there if you wanna grab the same exact blue. And then that's it, and you can see it already rendered our blue into the gradient. Now I'm gonna double click on this other gradient slider, and we're gonna select the red. And there's the RGB code for you if you want it. So now we have this sort of cold to hot gradient going. We're gonna adjust this gradient later, here just in a little bit. But what I'm concerned with now is, if you notice, I actually have this sort of Pac-Man shape going here. And we're gonna make this even better than this one over here. This one over here is not quite perfect, so we're gonna make this one perfect. If I click on my circle, notice that it's made up of 4 points here. And in order to cut out this 90-degree shape, we're gonna be concerned with just the right point and the bottom point and its handles. So if I use the direct selection tool, I can actually see the handles that make up each of these points. And on a circle, they're like straight out just to make this perfect circle shape. What I'm gonna do is actually select with the regular selection tool, select my shape, and I'm gonna use the pin tool because we need to add an anchor point. And that anchor point we need to add to somewhere in between these two. Doesn't exactly matter where. So just somewhere in between them, we're gonna click and add an anchor point. And it already, you know, adjusts those handles. To get rid of the handles, because that's what we want to do, we want to get rid of those handles. I'm going to hold Option, and it's going to change. Actually, make sure that this pin tool is not just on Add Anchor Point. Make sure it's on Pin Tool, and you can get that with the shortcut key P. So as long as I have that pin tool, adding a point works in the same way. If I hover over this, it changes to the Add Anchor Point. However, if I hold Option now, you'll see this kind of creates this sort of, I don't know, triangular arrow shape. And if I click on that anchor point, it'll get rid of the handles. And that's what we want there. So now I'm going to go grab the direct selection tool, click on that anchor point, and I'm just going to drag him to the center of my circle. And he kind of snaps in there if you have your smart guides turned on. Perfect. So now I've got this kind of weird sort of mouth shape going here. If I just click on this handle here and hold Option, you'll see the little plus icon comes up. I can adjust this handle. What I want to do is just drag it all the way back to that anchor point and then let go. And you'll see that that actually created that 90-degree angle from the edge of the circle into the center. So let's come down here, find this anchor point, we'll click on him, and we're gonna do the same thing. Hold Option, click, and drag that back down in. There we go. So we've cut out that 90-degree shape, but we still have, the shape still sort of retains its shape qualities. We didn't actually cut any points, but we did adjust some things. Now I actually want that to be pointed downward, so I'm going to select this with shape and then come up here to the corners, kind of a double-ended round arrow, and that means I can rotate this around. If I hold shift, I'm going to rotate on a 45-degree angle sort of axis here, and that will allow me to just rotate once down and let go, and now my my little Pac-Man shape is pointing to the bottom. That's exactly what we want. However, our gradient rotated, so let's go in and edit our gradient. I told you guys we'd be doing that in a second, so I'm going to pull up the gradient tab just to keep an eye on it. You'll see that we have some things adjusted here, and it actually did a negative 45-degree angle. We want that angle to be 0. So I'm just going to type in 0 and hit enter. And now our gradient goes from the left to the right again, cold to hot over here. That's awesome. So if you guys are following along, we almost got this guy completed. We're going to do a stroke on the outside, and then we're going to do the inner shadow. The stroke on the outside is pretty easy. I'm just going to select my shape and select a stroke of white. We might do a different color than white later. We might adjust that. But let's go ahead and do a stroke of maybe, instead of 1 point, we'll do like 5 points, just so that we can see that stroke around the edge. And you guys, it might be hard on your monitor, but you can see we have a white stroke around it now. Let's add that drop shadow to give this some real depth, to make it look like there's really some space from the top of our dial down through the temperature section. So to do that, I'm going to select my shape, go up to Effect, and we're going to use, under Stylize, the Inner Glow to sort of fake this drop shadow look. And it might have pulled up as normal or multiply, maybe screen. Maybe it pulled up as soft light, because that's actually what we want. So we're going to click on soft light here, and then I'm going to hit preview just to see where it's at. Ooh, that's looking pretty good already. So my opacity is at 100% and my blur is at 25%. And I have it from the edge. If you do it from the center, it's going to kind of blur from the center out, and on the edge it's going to get lighter. So I'm going to do it from the edge so that it sort of looks like a drop shadow. And this, I like the soft light because it kind of pulls in some of the colors as opposed to like multiply and some of the other things. It also allows the white stroke around the outside to retain its quality. With the multiply, if you select that, it does get darker, but also that stroke is affected by it as well. So I'm going to go back and we're going to do soft light instead. I'm going to hit OK, and that's sort of just rendered in there. The last thing I want to do is select this shape and then use the direct selection tool. And if you guys are updated with the latest CC version, you can adjust the corners of each of these. So I'm going to grab this corner here by clicking and dragging, and there I have that corner now. And I see this little dot here. I can actually pull that in to adjust those corners. Don't want to do it that much, we'll undo that. And what I can do is specify exactly how much I want to pull those in by. So now that I have it selected, I can come up here to the corners and just change that to 5 pixels. I'm just going to adjust that corner just a little bit, just to kind of round it off. Let's do it to this one too, so it's just not quite as pointy. 5 pixels, perfect. So there we go, that is the bottom part of our thermostat. Let's lock that in. I like it, I like where it's at. We're going to zoom out. I'm going to make sure before we lock it in, so I've got it selected, I'm going to make sure it's aligned to the artboard. We'll go center, and then center both horizontal and vertical, and that should put it in proper location. So I'm going to click on that, and I'm going to hit Command 2. We are locked in on that shape. And my zoom is just a little bit off, so I'm going to zoom in here. There we go. So now I'm going to create that shape from the center of this shape here. We're going to create the ellipse from the center out of this, not the center of the artboard necessarily. So I'm going to create from here out by clicking and dragging to start creating that circle. Hold Shift, hold Option, and we're going to just drag it out so that it's right here in the center of our thermostat, and maybe about to there. Oh, and we have that same gradient from before. Let's change this to white, and then let's change it to have no stroke on it for now. So there we go. We've got this white central shape. And this guy's actually going to be the bottom of the dial, and it's going to end up being that beveled edge. So let's add a gradient to this and pretend like the light is hitting it from up here. So it's going to get lighter up here, and it's going to be darker down here. So let's add a gradient over here. I'm going to select maybe that black to white gradient again. We're going to do linear gradient is fine. I'm going to select instead of a pure. Oh well, no, we'll go ahead and do the pure white, and then over here we'll select something a lot lighter, maybe a 10% gray tone, so that it looks lighter than the background here. You see it's kind of popping there. All right, so that goes from left to right. It's kind of hard to tell. We're going to change that gradient with the gradient tool once again, and instead of left to right, we're going to go click and drag. Whoop, we need to select our, make sure you select your shape and then grab the gradient tool, and we're going to click and drag at a 45-degree angle. You can hold shift and it'll lock in that 45-degree angle. So I want this to go from white to the sort of 10% gray, and we'll let go. And that has our shape set up. We're going to add one more thing, which is a drop shadow, just to give it a little bit more depth. So we'll go back up to Effect, Stylize, Drop Shadow. And then with this drop shadow, let's preview it and see where it's at. That might be a little bit heavy. Let's drop that back to something like 25%. And then I might want that to not quite go be as distant from the shape as that. So we'll do 5 pixels on the X and Y. We'll keep it on multiply, by the way. And I'm going to blur that maybe a little more, maybe like 8 pixels. And I think we can get away with maybe 50%. We can always change this later. The color I'm going to use is dark, and then I'm just going to hit OK. Cool, so we added just a little bit of a drop shadow to that shape. So next we're going to create one more shape on top, sort of that top dial circle. I'm going to use the ellipse tool again, and then find that center point of this circle. Once again, just click and drag, hold shift, hold option, and I'm going to drag it out almost to the edge, but I am going to leave a little bit of a lip. I'm going to let go right there. I'm going to change this color to a pure white, and we should be able to see a difference between that top circle and the circle right underneath it. Yep. So you can see that it sort of runs into each other up here in the upper left, because that's where the light hits, but then as we get down here, it kind of looks like that beveled edge look. Next, let's add a little bit of text on this dial. So I'm going to add use the type tool, shortcut key T. I'm going to click on my artboard out here, and we will just type, how about 72 degrees. So I type 72. I can go back to my selection tool and then just grab the corner of this and hold shift and option to kind of expand it up. And the font that I used was Babus New Book. If you want to follow along, that is a Typekit font, so you could sync that from the Typekit if you have Creative Cloud. Next, I actually want to add a degree symbol to this. But before I do that, I'm going to go ahead and center this on my circle here. Select that text, hold shift, select that top circle, then let go and click on that circle again. You'll see it's got a nice red outline now. That means we can that's aligning to the key object, so we can use the horizontal line and vertical line to align the 72 to that circle. Let go, click off. Now I'm going to double click in here again, and I'm going to add in a glyph here that is the degree symbol. So to add a glyph in Illustrator, just select where you want it to go. Go up to Type, Glyphs. It'll pull up a big old glyph panel. I know that my degree symbol is down here in the lower left. I'm going to drag this over so you can see that 72 right there. We'll just kind of squeeze this panel in some. Okay, in the lower left, well, it wasn't the lower left, now it's over here. Degree symbol. All you have to do to add a glyph is double click on it, and it'll add it right there in that spot. Perfect. I'm going to exit out. Everything is great. All right. Exit out again with selection tool and then click off. So there we go. We got 72 degrees. So where's 72 degrees? I know the 32 degrees we had over here. I think 72 maybe it's going to be somewhere over here. So the last thing that we need to do is actually create that little indentation that's in the dial that you would use to sort of use your finger to move around the dial. we're gonna do that. It's pretty simple actually. We're gonna create another ellipse with another gradient. So let's create just a small ellipse over here. I'm gonna hold shift to kind of lock it into size and shape, and then let go. And we already have a gradient on it, so let's go and adjust that gradient. We can, if we don't have a gradient, we can go in here and just click white to black. Now we have this nice little linear gradient. And the way that the light hits this is it's actually going to cast a shadow on the first part of it and then be lighter on the furthest side of it from the light, because you know the way that indentation goes, it's actually going to cast that shadow and then kind of as the lip comes up be a little bit lighter. So what we're going to do is first adjust our colors. So this is a little bit too dark, so let's go with something like C4, 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 whoop, C4. That's kind of a really light gray. And then for this one, we'll keep it at white. However, we need to adjust the way that this gradient goes. And remember that if we click the gradient tool, wherever the left side of this is, the left side of our gradient is the origin of our gradient. So if we click from there, a little bit off here. So if I click and then drag up to the upper left, that means I'm starting at white and ending at that gray tone. So that begins the white down here and then ends the gray up here, which is gonna make it darker up here and lighter down here. I'm gonna move that white a little bit closer, and then we'll bring that gray back a little bit. All right, so that is actually our dial. And then I'm gonna bring that over on top of everything else. And we're gonna move him over here to where 72 degrees would probably be. And I think he's looking like a little bit dark. Like I need a little bit more white in there. So what I can do is just drag this gradient slider closer to that gray, and that'll bring more white into the shape. There we go. So that looks pretty good actually for the little indentation. If I bring him down from the edge a little bit, that works. 72 degrees. Awesome, you guys. So that is how you create a little minimal flat interface thermostat design thingy. Once again, this tutorial is actually in collaboration with FlowTuts over on his channel. He does After Effects tutorials. He's gonna animate something kind of like this, maybe just like this. So check the link in the description. Check the card at the beginning of the video, and go, subscribe to his channel. Give him some love once again, and I hope you guys learned something here. If you have any questions or suggestions, post them in the comments section below. Like and subscribe, you guys, and have a great day. Take care, and I'll see you next time.